Second chapter. Cycles of History and the Language of Time. History does not move forward in a straight line. It unfolds in recurring sequences. Empires rise, consolidate power, overextend, fracture, and eventually renew or disappear. Economic systems expand until they exhaust their internal logic. Political orders oscillate between cohesion and polarization. Each generation experiences these changes as unprecedented, yet each crisis reveals familiar contours when placed against a longer horizon of time. The intuition that history follows cycles rather than linear progress is not new. It appears in ancient chronologies, religious texts, early astronomical records, and modern economic theory. What differs across eras is not the observation of cycles, but the language used to describe them. This book proposes a new way of reading historical cycles, one that integrates modern analytical frameworks with an older, largely forgotten discipline, the study of numerical structure in time. It argues that numbers are not merely tools for measurement, but carriers of order, encoding rhythms that govern natural phenomena, human behavior, and collective memory. At the center of this study is a recurring interval of approximately 84 years, a duration that appears repeatedly in political, economic, and social transformations. The argument is not that history repeats mechanically, but that societies reach similar points of tension, exhaustion, and renewal at predictable temporal distances. We are living at such a point now. Cycles before modern theory. Long before the emergence of economics, sociology, or political science, ancient civilizations tracked time through structured numerical systems. Egyptian priests aligned dynastic timelines with celestial movements. Mesopotamian scholars recorded repeating astronomical cycles. Hindu cosmology described vast recurring ages, measured in mathematically precise intervals. Mesoamerican calendars assume time itself to be recursive rather than linear. In these traditions, numbers were not symbolic decorations. They were structural indicators. The Hebrew Bible, often read today as purely theological or literary, is also a rigorously numerical text. Its chronology is organized through repeating units, sevens, 40s, jubilees, genealogies measured in precise lifespans. These numbers were intended to communicate order, continuity, and covenant across generations. Modern readers frequently reduce such numbers to metaphor. Ancient readers did not. For them, numerical structure was a way of preserving knowledge about time, how long societies endure, how memory fades, and when renewal becomes inevitable. Modern theories of historical cycles. In the modern era, several influential thinkers have independently rediscovered the cyclical nature of history, each through a different disciplinary lens. Nikolai Kondratiev. Kondratiev identified long economic waves typically lasting several decades, driven by technological innovation, capital formation, and debt expansion. These waves describe how economic systems rise, mature, and ultimately stagnate before giving way to new paradigms. His work demonstrated that economic growth is not continuous, but rhythmic. Strauss and Howe. Strauss and Howe proposed a generational model of history, arguing that societies move through recurring sequences of social moods. These cycles, lasting roughly the length of a human lifetime, culminate in systemic crises, wars, depressions, or institutional breakdowns that reset social norms and political structures. Their work came close to identifying a precise long cycle, even if their emphasis remained sociological rather than temporal. Ray Dalio. Dalio synthesized long-term debt cycles with the rise and decline of empires. His framework shows how excessive leverage, internal conflict, and loss of competitiveness precede the erosion of global leadership. Economic stress, political polarization, and external challenge tend to converge near the end of these cycles. Together, these thinkers confirm a fundamental truth: history moves in waves. What they do not fully explain is why these waves recur at such consistent intervals. The analyst at the table. To examine these theories side by side, imagine a symbolic figure, not a prophet, not a mystic, but a teacher analyst trained in history, economics, and ancient chronology. This analyst does not forecast events. He measures patterns. He places four frameworks on the table: Kondratiev's long economic waves, Strauss-Howe generational cycles, Dalio's debt and empire cycles. A time structure derived from recurring sacred number relationships, observed across civilizations and encoded in ancient texts, in which major historical turning points tend to recur at intervals of approximately 84 years, structured through the interaction of the numbers 4 and 7. The analyst notices something immediately. The first three frameworks describe what happens during cycles. The fourth clarifies when societies tend to reach comparable thresholds. Rather than competing, these approaches converge. The 84-year interval. 84 years is not an arbitrary duration. It represents the approximate length of a full human lifespan, long enough for direct memory of crisis to fade, for institutions built in response to catastrophe to weaken, and for similar errors to re-emerge under new conditions. Structurally, the interval reflects the interaction of foundational numerical principles long used to organize time. 4, representing the material world and structure. 7, representing completion and renewal. Together, they generate repeating phases of construction, consolidation, excess, and correction. History suggests that near the completion of such intervals, societies experience rising political polarization, financial excess and debt saturation, challenges to existing international orders, renewed ideological extremes. The parallels between the 1930s and the early 21st century are not coincidences. They are symptoms of a cycle reaching its turning point. Why this framework matters. Economic theory explains incentives. Sociology explains behavior. Political science explains power. What is often missing is a precise understanding of temporal distance, how long it takes for collective memory to decay, and for structural risk to reaccumulate. A time structure based on recurring numerical relationships does not replace modern theories. It disciplines them. It provides a framework for understanding why crises cluster when they do, and why warnings are often ignored until correction becomes unavoidable. What leaders must learn. The danger of cyclical history is not repetition itself, but ignorance of repetition. Leaders who assume their era is unprecedented underestimate risk. Leaders who recognize historical intervals act with restraint, preparation, and humility. We are currently witnessing the convergence of multiple long cycles: economic, political, and generational. Ignoring their alignment does not prevent their resolution, it ensures disorder. Understanding them offers a chance not to escape history, but to navigate it consciously. Numbers do not predict events. They reveal structures. Across civilizations, numbers has served as a language through which time communicates its limits. We are living at the edge of such a limit now. This book does not claim prophecy. It offers pattern recognition. History will complete its cycle whether we acknowledge it or not. The choice before us is whether we meet that completion blindly, or with understanding.